Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kasten Kickstart Part 13. Now, we've done a lot of things so far in this series, but one thing we haven't done is actually install any Kubernetes native workloads. I mean, I guess you can argue that KubeVirt is also Kubernetes native, but it is virtualization, right? Just KVM through KubeVirt allows you to create virtual machines and run them in Kubernetes. But what about, normal containers, those things we really love? Well, we're going to do some of that today. We're going to attempt to do it, and we're going to actually try to show the interaction of the VM and the container. So what we're looking at, and this is possibly the future, because you never know. I've stopped guessing the future ever since COVID in 2020. I try not to do that because if I'm wrong big time. But what you can see, or I think we'll see in organizations, is you'll have virtualization, obviously, but then there's some workloads which simply don't require a virtual machine. It's overkill. And in the spirit of conserving resources and being more efficient, you'll have workloads which are running in containers alongside workloads that are in VMs. And this is what you see in things like OpenShift and Harvester. So we're going to try to do that today on our KubeVirt setup. I'm going to set up a MongoDB with a front end, and I'm going to try to access the front end from the VM in my KubeVirt VM. Okay, it gets really labyrinth kind of stuff. This might turn into two episodes because it could be long. I've not tested this yet, so this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be just on a whim. I wrote out the YAML files. I Googled around. I looked at the documentation, so this should work. Knock wood, should work. If it doesn't, though, I'll just redo the video until it does. But hopefully not. So first and foremost, we're gonna go over to our setup and see that everything's okay. So one thing I want to point out right away is in Kasten, what you want to see is compliant green. So very much like green, Veeam green, right? Makes everyone happy. Same thing here. Veeam here in Kasten means compliant. That means it's compliant with the policy, which is nice. If an auditor comes in, you just don't have to open your mouth, go, compliant, and they run away. Okay, so let's start this off. Again, the instructions will be in the GitHub, in the GitHub repository at the very end, but also I'm going to paste it in the in today's episode if I'm able to complete it. There were some people asking if they could just put it right away because it's fun to watch, but it's fun to do at the same time. All right, so let's go to our command line. So there I am. I'm in my Kasten single node setup, and I'm going to try to install MongoDB. Now, what we're eventually going to do, by the way, the reason I'm choosing Mongo is I want to afterwards leverage a blueprint. A blueprint is a way to perform application-aware backups. Because just like with virtualization, if you're running a database, for instance, in a container, and you just do a snapshot of the database, well, guess what? Of the database container, just like a VM, that's not going to help you much if it's a very highly transactional or doing a lot of operations database. Basically, you're gonna get, it's like I like to do the old explanation I used when it came to telling users about VSS. Not users, users didn't care about VSS, but about VSS, which is imagine a big family photo and everyone's moving their mouths, and you take it and it's all blurry. Same as your database. You want to say freeze or something of that nature, and that's what we want here as well. So let's start doing that. We're just going to go over to get the documentation. Okay, so what are we going to do first? Well, first of all, I want to create a namespace, okay? You always want to put your applications in separate namespaces. Also because of the fact that in Kasten, it's much easier to back them up that way. If you've got like the MongoDB namespace, you just pick that and it'll back up everything in there. So let's create a namespace. What I'm going to call it? I'm going to call it MongoDB demo. Just because, I don't know, I decided to do something different. So create NS MongoDB demo. All right, simple enough. Oh, I already did it. There you go. I'm one step ahead of myself. So I did create that. Did I create anything in there? Let me see. Oh my goodness, what's happening to me? So let's get the pods in the Mongo, because I said I hadn't practiced this, right? But I think I had done that step. Good, there's nothing in there. I'll say, what happened, Jeff? It's the New Year's. Maybe because I jumped in the lake yesterday and it had some kind of effect. It did, and I just obviously typed that in and forgot about it. So database or the namespace is there, so we're all set and ready to go. What am I going to do next? Okay, next, I need to create credentials for the database. So this is kind of standard. You do this. And how do we do this in Kubernetes? We keep these things in entities called secrets, okay? So I could do it from command line, which is K, create, secret, and then there's the whole command line thing, but I might as well do it in a file. And I will create this file called MongoDB secret. Okay, secret. And remember, it's always a YAML file. It's always a YAML file. And I'm just going to copy and paste what I've got here. Now, I'm not going to super duper on the security, obviously, because this is a demo, so don't be shocked by that username and password, but try to remember it. Now, if I forget that username and password, then I'm definitely going to need a vacation. Okay, so that's ready to go. Now, the one thing you do want to remember, though, that if you looked in there, let's look again, 1 second, cat MongoDB secret, is when you create these things, don't forget to put the namespace. Otherwise, you'll create a secret, but if you don't put the namespace in there, it's going to be created in the default namespace, which means MongoDB won't find it or be able to do anything with it. Let's create that. It's very simple. I always use apply. It doesn't matter. You could use create, I guess, but apply if you want to make changes. I called it MongoDB secret. And if everything's all right and there's no problems with the YAML file, indentation or anything, it should come back and say created. Okay. Next, we're going to create a headless service for MongoDB. Okay, so this is not something we're going to access. This is a MongoDB service for itself. Let's create this and just call it the MongoDB HE, and I'll do SVC so I know what it is, headless service. And if you're an expert in MongoDB, you'll understand this. We're not going to go too deep in this right now. The main thing is you need to create it. I'm going to create it. This is a service. What are the roles of services again? They are for accessing the application, be it from outside, be it from anywhere. Okay. So we'll do that. Okay. Create F MongoDB HE, and that's created as well. Good. All right. So now we're going to create what's called a stateful set. Now, again, I don't want to go too deep into Kubernetes theory, whatnot. Think of this as just a bunch of pods, okay? You have deployments, you have separate pods, and you have stateless sets. There's a difference between them, but I don't want to go into that right now. Let's just call this MongoDB SS for stateful. Okay, well, so we know it's stateful. It's state S, put it that way, states, okay? That way you'll kind of remember. And we'll copy and paste in there. Again, this will all be in there. And in the documentation, and let's just make sure that everything's correct here. That's the environment variables, which I think we'll double check it. Again, I haven't actually run these yet. Let's see if it likes that. So apply MongoDB states. There we go. That's created. And next, we will, and that, by the way, has a storage in it. Next, we're going to create the front end for this, okay? Again, we're going to create a Mongo Express front end, it's called. So we're just going to copy and paste all these things that I've created beforehand. So MongoDB, let's call it Express, FE, and YAML. Again, whatever you call the file, not really important as long as you remember what it is. Okay, so K, apply F Mongo Express, boom, that's created. So far it's happy. And we need a service for the Mongo Express. Now this is what we're going to go from the outside. So this service we have to access from the outside. So we're going to call this the MongoDB Express SVC YAML. Okay, I'll paste that in there. Remember the ports there. No, we're not going to do this yet. Why? Because I want this to be a node port. Just because I don't want to mess with ingress. It's a single node cluster. On a single node cluster, when you're in K3S, ingress can get a little more complicated because I've already got Kasten using it. So I'm going to create this as a node port. So the only thing I have to remember is I got to put the type somewhere and I give it a node port. So node ports, I'll give it like 31. What was the original one? 81. So let's say 3180, 81. Is that a little too high? Let's do this, okay? And I need to put the type in there. And I don't remember exactly where type goes. I think it's at this level too. We will find out if it isn't. This is always a fun thing because it won't work. It will complain. So let's do that. I think type is on that indentation there at that level of ports. It might not be. We will now find out. Okay, express MongoDB dash express SVC. And it's okay. So let's just double check that. I'm interested in that service, if it's come out okay. Demo, and it's good. So as you can see, this is a node port, so I'll be able to access it. Now let's check about what's happening with our demo in general. Let's take a look. So I'm going to take a look at the pods and MongoDB demo. We'll take a look at those. Looks like everything's running. We have the MongoDB stateful set part, which is this, and then the express there. Let's check our storage. Go PVC again in MongoDB. So some of these things you start to really remember off the top of your head. Like you have to check the namespace, right? There you go. Okay, so it's there, 5 gigabytes. That's what I wanted, Longhorn storage class. So it's all looking good. Now, what we're going to try to do is actually access it from the outside. So what was the node port? 31808. 31808. So here we go. We're going to go to, I'll use the IP address because this is a VM. So 192.168.0.176, and it was 31808. Look at that. Okay. Now we will it's admin 123. Admin. Remember I said remember this. Now it's not that. So unless I made a mistake, admin 123. I'm going to check my YAML file. Now it could be that I forgot to put in credentials. I can't remember. Anyways, let's check it out. This would be in the MongoDB Express FE, not in the service, in the front end pod. So look at the environment variables. So there are the root username key. Okay, name, me config MongoDB admin password. Okay. I see. I should have put those in there. I'm thinking. Let's take a look at the secret. Okay, get secret MongoDB demo. So let's see the secrets first of all. There's one secret, fine. Let's now describe that secret. Get describe. Okay, describe. You got to describe something. So you describe the secret. And what is it? MongoDB secret's the only one there. Okay, so there you go. Okay. All right, so let's look at the YAML file. Oh, YAML. So there's a whole wide range of things you can do here. When we look at the YAML file, we don't want to describe, we want to get. It's another way you can look at secrets. And here we can see things a little bit deeper. So there's the root password and the root username. So this is admin123. I can tell, not because I'm a genius, because look, admin and admin123 looks very similar. So the way you do this is in base 64. All you do is echo. I'm going to echo that thing, and I'm going to decode it. So base 64 minus D, and you'll see admin123. I'm pretty certain. There it is, admin123. But that is not the password for the Express. So I think what I've done is I copied my Mongo secret. Let's just see. Okay, let me just look where I put this. Okay, so this is the first time I did this, and inevitably I ran into some fun things, but very quickly I think solved, because all I did was look at the logs of the container, right? So do k logs in the MongoDB namespace, and then the Mongo Express pod, which I just copied and pasted when I did a get pods. And I see immediately that it's listening to all connections, great. And then it says basic auth credentials are admin pass. Okay, so thank you. That's interesting. So let's try that, admin pass. And it says change them, please. So admin and then pass. Let's see if it's lying or not. Boom, wasn't that simple. So remember, sometimes it's really simple, because I actually started to look in Google and try to figure this out. What could be terribly wrong? And then I got a little frustrated, which sometimes happens. And I thought, let's look at the logs and see what it's saying. So generally, if you have something like a front end or anything like that, which you're dealing with directly from outside, it should complain in the logs, unless the pod is dead. And so just going in there, what did I see right away? So let's go over what I did basically so you can see. So I didn't memorize that container name, obviously. So I did kget pods, or pod name, not container. They're containers inside the pods, in the MongoDB demo, right? And I see two. I saw this before. One's the Mongo, right, which is the database server. Well, not server, but the database pod with the container in it. And there's one container. You see one of one's ready. And then the other one's this Mongo Express. So all you do is this, okay, right click on it, and then K logs, and then in the MongoDB demo namespace, and tell me what's happening. And there's a bunch of stuff here. Name does not revolve, so I'm not gonna, that might be something to deal with later, but let's look first at the very bottom. The minute I came in here, it told me, look, server is open, what you saw before. But now I logged in successfully, and look at this. It's actually telling me what's happening. So that's pretty useful, right? So let's do something else right now. Let's press something. So this is Mongo Express. Pretty cool, right? Let's look at it shows you the databases. Let's create a database. Let's create a database. We're gonna put the name in there. Let's be a narcissist. Call it Jeff. All right, just for fun of it. Create it, and there it is, Jeff database. Let's see if the logs show me that. Bring back my command line, and we do the same command again, and look at that. Okay, so it's a whole bunch of, it actually doesn't show you. It shows you what's happening. Things are being pressed, right? But oh no, it does. Look, database name is invalid. Remember? Did I put something in there? I think I did. Oh, I had nothing in there. Let's try that one again. Let's just try to create an empty one, and we will prove our point. Okay, we'll do this again. And somewhere here it should say database is invalid. I think there it is. Yeah, that database name is invalid. Yeah, of course, because and okay, let's try something really crazy. Like, I'm assuming this will be invalid. I hope. Otherwise, well, I just delete it afterwards. Yes, that's invalid too. That's what I thought. Whenever you put a whole bunch of gobbledygook in, it gets annoyed. And this one also is invalid, as you can see. So that's pretty cool. So what do we have here? We've created MongoDB. We've created a front end, a nice front end for it, right? So you can do stuff with it. And it's ready basically to be backed up by Veeam Kasten. We can also, I've never, again, played with this. Look at the admin. Look at that. Pretty cool. Can we see system users? This will show, well, this will show us our admin. There we go. See? I'm assuming you can probably change the password here. What is that? That's, looks like that's like the, actually that's pretty cool. Look, the role. I like this. The stored key, whatnot. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. And I'm not Mr. Database by any means, but I have been forced to play with them to fix them at times. So interesting, right? So this is quite nice. New document, you do all that. So if you're a database person, you just go wild here. I'm not, so I won't. However, I might go on the internet and try to find some kind of a sample database to fill this with data and to make changes, and then delete some and do that for our restores and whatnot that we do, especially when we come to the file level restores that are going to take place with Kasten 8.5. All right. So I just want to get this up and running. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to create a backup policy for this. And this could be simple, but it's going to be the same thing as before with the VM to a large extent. But then what we're probably going to do, maybe not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, to really draw this out, paid by the hour, is to use a blueprint to protect it. And then we'll use a restore. Okay, things to remember from this. This is a deployment, well, stateful set, but it's a Kubernetes pure workload. Okay, it's not a virtual machine. It's MongoDB Express front end, MongoDB database with a Mongo Express front end, which we can manipulate and have fun with. And remember also that the default password for the Mongo database, that's for the database. But for the actual Mongo Express, it's admin and pass, which you're supposed to change, which I haven't. And it tells you because you looked at the logs when you couldn't log in. The logs of the container. All right, that's enough for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.